computer, right? There we go. So we are now recording. I am Jim Freund. With me is Jenn Northington. It is a Saturday afternoon, almost 4 p.m. In the second year of the plague, 2021. A very sad but true statement. And I met Jenn when she was organizing readings and doing a lot more, but I knew her through the readings at Word Books in, what was the neighborhood?
In Greenpoint in Brooklyn.
Greenpoint, yeah. Yes, the impossible to get to.
I maintain that the F train is worse than the G train. Having lived off of both of them, that's my theory about it.
Well, I'm on the R train, which
that's the whole special deal.
Which has its own category in and of itself. But to get to the F train, I have to go way out.
Yeah.
I think actually there's one place in Brooklyn I can switch to the F train, and you have to go up approximately 6 flights of stairs. It is horrifying.
Yeah, that's no great.
And I get short of breath, so it takes me like 12 minutes.
Yeah.
But all that aside, you are now in Pennsylvania.
I am. I'm in Philadelphia.
In Philly, okay.
Yeah. I worked for Word for a good long time, like 5 or 6 years. I helped them open their second location in Jersey City, and then Book Riot hired me away from them. And so now I've been at Book Riot for about 6 years full time. And they are a remote company, so you don't have to be in a specific place. And New York turned out not to be for me long term, sadly. I hoped it would, but it did not work out for me in New York City. So Philadelphia was the next port of call, and I actually really do love it here. So
where did you start from before New York?
Well, I've actually lived all over the country. I grew up mostly in New Jersey. I went to college in Los Angeles, California, and then I lived in Arizona, Colorado, Utah, and Maryland before moving to New York.
Okay. So, and now Philadelphia.
Okay,
very good. I've got Queens and Brooklyn.
Oh, well,
that's it. The outer boroughs.
They're good boroughs, though.
They're good boroughs.
I lived in Queens for 1 year of my New York stay, and I liked it very much.
Yeah, I love Jackson Heights. It's where I grew up, and very changing neighborhood, very immigrant neighborhood. My parents were immigrants from Germany, so came in on that wave. Isaac Asimov lived there.
Right.
And who was a fellow who wrote for the science editor for Astounding. Willie Lay.
Okay.
That was it, Willie Lay. And but WBAI was all over Manhattan, moving from place to place, and now it's found a very nice home in the Brooklyn Commons in Boerum Hill, and in the same building where I run the New York Review of Science Fiction readings monthly.
Yes.
But that's now virtual.
Yes. Well, I think pretty much everything is at this point.
Yeah.
In terms of book events, for sure.
Yeah. There's one book event that in Brooklyn that's on a rooftop.
Oh, smart.
Yeah, that's smart, but I like my reading series.
Well, and not all of us have a rooftop to get to, so.
Yeah, but my event is available on both YouTube and Facebook. It was actually before the pandemic. And the only difference is now we're doing 1 reader a month instead of 2 readers a month, except in December, which is always family month.
Nice.
And our family used to be always every time Delia Sherman and Ellen Kushner.
Yes.
And right now it's Carlos Hernandez and CSE Cooney, Claire Cooney.
Nice.
So, good pedigrees there. Good families.
100%.
Michael Bishop this Tuesday.
Very nice.
One of the nice things about doing it virtual is our first guest was Jack Dan from Australia.
Yeah. For the Swordstone Table events, we got to put together contributors who we never would have been able to unite geographically. So I'm a fan of the virtual. No doubt.
Okay. And where can people see those?
So actually, they are listed on my website, which is jennirl.com. And if you go to the events section, their listings are there for all of them. And they were all through independent bookstores and other organizations. And the really cool thing that these folks are doing is that you can view them after the fact. Mm-hmm. So you didn't have to be there the first time. So there are links to all of those sites, and they should be able to get you to the recordings from there.
Yeah, and that's true of my things as well, including this. The only difference being with the reading events, they're live, so people can do chat questions from either YouTube or Facebook. Mm-hmm. So that's about the only difference there. But that's cool. So again, that's Jenn, 2 N's, JENNIRL.
Thank you.
.com. And we'll have to mention that again at the end of this. Now we are talking about is this your first anthology?
It is. It's my baby, my very first ever baby.
Yeah, hold that book cover close to the camera so people get a look at the niftiness of it. It's such a great cover.
Yeah, our designer and illustrator Perry De La Vega did an amazing job.
Yeah. And it is a collection of new Arthurian stories. And as fate or Merlin or something would have it, came out just about the same time as a movie that I have just fallen totally in love with, The Green Knight. That's Knight, as in Sir Gawain in The Green Knight.
That's right.
And it is a bizarre, amazing movie. It is, I've been saying to people, it is to at least Arthurian fantasy, if not fantasy in general, as 2001: A Space Odyssey is to science fiction. So it's got ambiguity, it's got brilliance, great cinematography, and a fascinating view of Arthurian tale.
Yeah, I also saw it. It was an amazing experience. I really feel like I need to see it again.
Oh yeah, this is a two-time
you just know
movie.
There are layers and layers going on there. But yeah, my first impression is very similar. It was very strange. It moved very slowly, but in a way that I didn't mind, because everything was so gorgeous that I was happy to just stare at the screen and take in all of the details. And I know there are details I missed. And amazing performances. I mean, everything about it was just really thoughtfully done.
And multicultural, and Gawain is played by Dev Patel.
Yes.
Who this year has played both Gawain, not Sir Gawain, but Gawain, and David Copperfield.
That's right. That's right. Love to see it.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't seen that yet?
No. Yeah. I have not seen that one yet.
You've got a treat ahead of you. But I can't pronounce the very Scottish name of the director. Same guy who did Veep and...
Oh, sure. I don't know that I can pronounce it either.
Yeah. I had no idea what kind of person he would be, but I found on YouTube a lecture by him about Dickens.
Oh.
And he has a Scottish accent that makes David Tennant sound like he's from the Bronx. So his heavy squat accent. And Dev Patel has gone from being this kid to, as Gawain, this gorgeous. Don't know if I want to say knightly, but again, people need to see the movie.
Yeah, right, that's right. We don't want to give any spoilers. And that's one of my favorite things, is how they play with that concept of courage and honor. The way that they play with those two things, I think, is just like, oh, it's so good.
And you find that a lot in Arthurian literature, especially when it comes to Gawain, because I have read novels and stories in which he is, I think the proper word would be churl.
That's what I always think of Kay when I think of that word, though. If we're talking about Arthur, like Kay is always the churl in my head.
Yeah, except it's Gawain who, in some versions, is the one who calls out Guinevere for having a tryst with Lancelot, and then jousts with Lancelot against Guinevere's.
Right.
And this is in all versions that he jousts with Lancelot for Guinevere's honor, and Lancelot kills Gawain. That's his end. His beginnings are also often very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, like every character, though, in Arthur, like we get so many different, there's so many different versions of these characters. I mean, there are some through lines, of course, but each of them gets a really interesting variety of treatments, I think, from the jump and then on from there.
Yeah, and then that's one of the reasons why sword stone table as opposed to stone sword table. You know why I get that screwed up? Laura Nero.
Oh.
Stone Soul Picnic.
There you go.
Okay, so it's such an appropriate book because it plays with all of these different fractal views of Arthurian legend, and from, I would say, 2/3 of the writers who I don't know to some of my favorite writers like Nisi and Maria Devana Headley and so on and so forth. And it's multicultural, and some of it is queer, and some of it runs the gamut from A to beyond Z.
Yeah, that was our goal. So thank you for saying that. That was what we were going for, no doubt.
Yeah. So, and how did this come up? How did this? Oh, we haven't even mentioned the name of your co-editor on camera.
Yes, we have to talk about Swapna. Swapna Khrishna is a huge part of. Well, I'll tell the story, and you'll see. This would not exist without her. There's no doubt. But she just wasn't able to join us today. So
yeah, but we'll do another with her.
Yeah. So Swordstone Table came out of a couple of different seeds, I guess, that all sort of twined together. So one of them was that Swapna and I worked together some years ago. And as we were getting to know each other as coworkers, we also ended up bonding over our shared love of specifically Mary Stewart's Arthurian series, the quartet. And then, found all of these other points of commonality and became very close. And so that was, sort of in the bedrock of our friendship, was that we were both Arthur nerds. And then some years after that, I was seeing there were all of these, retellings of different things happening. This was like 2017, early 2018. And a lot of them in the YA world specifically, but also some literary fiction, like we were seeing Homeric retellings and, different mythologies coming back into play, people retelling stories that are part of the canon, part of the classics. And I was like, where is Arthur? Like, I'm not seeing the Arthur retellings that I feel like we could get, where are these, like I want gender bent Arthur, I want queered Arthur, I want all of these different things, and I'm just not seeing them. And now since that point, I'm delighted to say we have gotten a ton of them, actually. Like, there are so many Arthurian retellings happening since then and continue to happen. And it's very cool to be part of that. But so I went to Swapna and I said, do you think, what do you think about an anthology? Like, I would love to do one. I would love to see if people want to write these, but I know I can't do it myself. Would you be willing to work on it with me? And she said yes. And now, 3.5 years later, it exists in the world.
Now, did you ask for submissions, or were you inviting writers, or?
Yeah, we found out, as we went through the book publication process, which was a very eye-opening. I mean, I've been a bookseller for more than 10 years. I've been in the book industry since 2004 in one way or another, but I had never been on the author/editor side of that equation. And so when we got our agent, Kate McKean, she said, okay, well, you need to go in with a couple stories already written and a couple yeses already on the table. And they have to be yeses that an editor is going to be excited enough about to buy your anthology. And I was like, okay. So we made this massive spreadsheet, and just started putting down anybody who we had read, who we thought might be interested and might actually open an email from us. Those were the two things that had to be true.
Okay.
And then we started sending out emails, and we were sort of astonished by what an amazing response we got. And we ended up being able to fill the anthology just out of those invitations. So yeah, we got amazingly lucky.
Yeah, and there are, we should mention, I already mentioned Nisi Shawl, but some of the names that I know from having read elsewhere, Daniel Lavery.
It's Lavery.
It's
Yeah.
Lavery. Maria Devana Headley, who I know she's read for us at the New York Review of Science Fiction
Yes.
readings. Sylvia Moreno Garcia, who we have published at, I shouldn't say we have published Lightspeed Magazine. I'm an audio editor for Lightspeed Magazine, for Skyboat Media, actually, who do the audio version of Lightspeed Nightmare. And, and Ken Liu. Some guy.
Just some guy.
Just some guy, as they say in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, that's right.
3 times reader for New York Review of Science Fiction readings, and about 5 times on Hour of the Wolf.
Nice.
So, and just a neat, wonderful, hateful person, because kids, he was a lawyer.
Is that
brilliant writer, he's a software engineer.
What doesn't he do?
Yeah.
He's a translator.
He's a translator, and he's done stuff for us at Lightspeed. I have cheated when some of the names of the writers and the universities they've gone to or whatever, I couldn't pronounce them. So I called him up to get those pronunciations, and I recorded that phone call. And then instead of announcing it and reading it, I put on the recording of him doing it. Total cheating.
Yeah, that is cheating, but there you go.
And he works a lot with Neil Clark, doing being a go-between between for Chinese writers and Clark's World. Every issue of Clark's World has a Chinese story. And if Ken wasn't involved, he at least spurred on the initial thing. And he is the right kind of geek.
The right kind of geek. What does that mean?
Arthurian.
Oh, yes. Well,
he was on one of the New York Review of Science Fiction readings he did was when John Joseph Adams had an anthology of tales from Barsoom. So even Edgar Rice Burroughs, one of the less enlightened people of the 20th century.
That's one way to put it.
Oh, yes. Him and King Leopold Belgium. Well, well, one is worse than the other, but anyway, moving on from that. Yeah, so Ken is an amazing writer. His story in this book is wonderful.
Yeah, that's actually, it's our only previously published work. Everything else in the collection is original. But when we went to Ken and we said, hey, do you want to write something? He said, actually, I already have this story that I wrote for something else that I think would be a great fit, and I have the rights to it. So like, do you want to read it and see if it works for you? And we were like, absolutely, yes, 100%, send it along. And of course, it's great. I mean, it's so strange, and it's all about identity and transformation, which are huge themes in Arthurian literature. There's a direct shout out to Uther and Igraine. And I have this whole personal theory, which has not been vetted by Ken Liu. So like, this is just me talking here, but I feel like one of the relationships, and I don't want to give away too much, but I feel like one of the relationships in that story is very Merlin Nimue, actually. So, so yeah, so I see it on multiple levels in that story.
Okay, yeah. And that's interesting that you would do Merlin Nimue and Igraine and Uther.
Yeah.
Because, well, there's a parallel between the two, and possibly mastered by the same person. Possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on whether or not you think that person lives forward or backward in time.
Right. That's right.
Which is, well, I think. Spoilers? Well, okay. Start spoilers at the beginning.
Yeah, right.
That's a good way to go. What are some of the more bizarre places this quest of yours took? Not necessarily in what ended up being published, but when you're delving into Arthurian literature, you're going into all kinds of places. Actually, let's table that question, come back to it, and let's explain that the book has 3 parts.
Sure. Yeah, so we've actually been asked about this a lot when we had all the stories, and then you have to put them in an order, right? Like they have to go in an order. And it was a more complicated question because in addition to having sci-fi fantasy, we also have some romance, we have some crime, we have some, contemporary, we have historical. Like it's not a straight sci-fi fantasy anthology, although Arthur arguably is the property, if you want to put it that way, of science fiction and fantasy. So the theme makes it sci-fi fantasy, but not all of the stories have magic or science fiction, tropes in them. So, and that was very deliberate choice on our part, because I love to read. I read across all genres, and I just love when they start, mixing together. I love that genre bending synergy that can happen.
That's also what Ellen Kushner does with, now I'm blanking on the name of that series.
River.
Yeah, River is the word I remember.
It's in the Swords Point world. Riverside.
Swords Point is the first.
Yeah. Riverside, I think is right. Yes, that series, that shared universe has done some really cool things.
Yeah, but there's no magic.
But there's no magic. That's right. But you don't.
But it's speculative fiction, no matter what.
Absolutely, you don't need it to be magic for it to be speculative. So
a lot of Arthurian literature similarly can end up in that same kind of place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so then we had all these stories, and we're like, how do we put them together? Do we organize them by genre? Do we organize them by character? Like, how do we make it all flow? What makes the most sense? And we can't remember whose idea this was. Our editor at Random House, Anna Kaufman, swears it wasn't her. So either Swapna or I get the credit for this, but we're not sure who said, well, Arthur's the past and future king. Like, what if we did past, present, future? Because we have a time range of stories, and it just clicked and everything came together in a really, really exciting way.
Which of the 3, because you also have the present.
Yes.
Which of the 3 was the hardest?
You mean to like edit or to
find good stories for? Like, well, for example, I would guess it would be the present.
We actually didn't. So when.
Okay, for the moment, Jen, you have locked up on me. You You are frozen in Zoom. And I'm not quite sure why. I don't think it's on my end for a change. So is there something I can do to... Let's see, I can try making her a host as well. No, that would take away my being a host.
No?
No,
Oh,
okay.
there you are. Here we go.
Did I freeze on you?
You did, and I don't know.
And you froze on me. Okay.
I don't know whose side it's on. We're having a bit of a storm, so that could be messing with my internet signal a little bit.
That could be it.
So I apologize if that. Hopefully, it won't happen again. But let's see. So
I could make a snide remark about Philadelphia, and it might deserve it, you know. But
let's see. So we were talking about organizing the stories, and you were asking me which was the hardest to find stories for. So actually, when we were inviting authors to be part of this, we kept it very open. We did have a few, you know, specific asks, like we knew we wanted a crime story, so we talked to Asma Zehanat Khan about that. And when we reached out to Silvia Moreno Garcia, we were like, hey, we don't have as much sci-fi as we would like. Would you be willing to incorporate sci-fi elements in your story? And I did have to tell a couple people that they couldn't do Merlin because we already had too many Merlin stories. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, we mostly let people pick their character and their genre and their setting. Like, we did not ask them to write to a brief. We asked them to tell the story that they wished they had gotten as an Arthur nerd. Like, what is the story? You know, it's a very Toni Morrison kind of question. Like, what's the story that you were missing as somebody who loves Arthurian, you know, tales, and will you write it for us? So yeah. So the past, present, future organization came at the very end. We didn't know what kind of range we would have in terms of setting, time period wise or geographically. I mean, we didn't know we were going to have Mars certainly in there. We didn't know we were going to have the Midwest in, you know, the turn of the century. Like, we didn't know all kinds of stuff. So yeah.
So now we can go back to the question that we tabled, which I think I've forgotten.
What was it? It was something about other works, maybe.
No, but we could get to that. We were talking about that off air.
Yes.
And right. I'm almost wondering if you might do a follow-up anthology of reprints.
Oh, interesting. I have not thought about it, to be perfectly honest.
Well, I hope with any luck, I put a little bug in your ear about that, because I think of The Last Defender of Camelot by Roger Zelazny, which was also strangely made, not strangely, very well made into a Twilight Zone.
Right. I have to look that up because I have not read nor seen that episode, I don't think, and I definitely need to experience that. Yeah, I was telling you that at some point I stumbled across CJ Cherry had written.
Yeah, CJ Cherry.
Yeah, she wrote a sort of Camelot in Space with Androids novella that's part of a collection called Alternate Realities. The novella itself is called Port Eternity, and it's very odd and really fascinating. And, you know, you've got like Elaine and Lancelot and Percival and Gawain and Mordred, and they're androids on a spaceship, and I don't want to say anything other than that because it's such an interesting and weird reimagining of those characters. It's bananas. It's really fun. And then, of course, you know, much more recently, we've gotten Tracy Deon's Legendborn, which is a real fascinating look at what legacy means, and also sort of, you know, reworking Arthuriana in a very contemporary college setting, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's also a high school setting series by, the woman who wrote Princess Diaries.
Oh, Meg Cabot.
Yes, Meg Cabot
really?
Has a whole YA series
about
all
Arthurian
set in
stuff.
high school, you know, with Gwen and Artie.
See, who doesn't love King Arthur? And then there's Kirsten White's The Guinevere Deception, which I loved. There's just, there's so many recent ones and then older ones that I had missed. And, I think you mentioned when we were off air before we started recording that you had taken like a couple decades off of Arthuriana. And I have to say, I really had done the same. I read a ton, anything I could get my hands on when I was a teenager. Like I started reading Arthur probably, Arthurian stuff probably in my 10 and up. But especially in my teen years, I just was like, I found the Stephen Lawhead series, I think. I found the Percia Woolley series. I found, Mary Stewart. I found just everything. Anything and everything I could get my hands on. And then I sort of
I have to reread Mary Stewart because I have to admit, and I know this is a terrible thing to say, I did not ken to it. I did not. Yeah, I felt like she took a lot of the magic out of Merlin.
She did. She did.
And just made him a smart person.
Yes.
And I think that was in my relatively neo-pagan phase of my life.
Sure.
And so I was looking for the magic.
Yeah.
And there it wasn't.
Right.
But I'm gonna have to reread Mary Stewart now and The Crystal Cave and all of those.
Well, I think that just speaks to what is so eternally compelling about Arthuriana is that there are so many different ways to look at it and to play with it. And, if you're looking for something very specific, you're going to find something that speaks to you as well as the ones that don't, right? And if you're just like open to whatever, you might find things you would not have expected to see, which is what happened with this anthology in particular. We by just saying write what you want, we got stuff I never would have thought to ask for, which is the best possible outcome, right? Like it's the best outcome. But yeah, when I was reading Mary Stewart as a teenager, I thought it was so amazing that she took the magic out, because everything else I had read leaned very heavily into the magic, and it was sort of like a jolt to the system that you could do it without magic and still have it be. I thought it was still good. I thought it was still interesting. I loved the characters and the way they interacted with each other. So yeah, I mean, it's certainly not T.H. White, right? But it's its own take, and that was really eye-opening for me.
Yeah, I cheated. I read Mallory before I read T.H. White.
Yeah.
And boy, did I struggle with that, but I was at the right age
That's good.
to really just geek on that kind of stuff. And then I read the T.H. White. Long before he rewrote The Sword and the Stone is what I consider that final novel, which to me is not T.H. White's canon. It doesn't really fit into Once and Future King, although it's published within it nowadays. And but I would have to say, if anybody wants the canonistic Arthur, would you say it's T.H. White? I mean, for a lot of people, that would be the canonical.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people it is. I mean, I think your canon is whatever was first for you. I'm a believer in a personal canon. So I guess, for me, it was in terms of reading experiences, it was T.H. White.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think he's been a touch, especially because, Once and Future King was the inspiration for the Disney movie, which turned on a whole generation to King Arthur, right? Like, and then some. It is its own touch point. So yes, he's definitely one of the major ones. But I think there are other people who come to it through, I don't know, through any number of other places, including there's no real original, right? But Mallory is pretty close.
Mallory is, and then there's more than one edition of Mallory.
Of course, yeah.
There, the Caxton.
Yes, the Caxton. Yes.
Yeah. When did that come out? About?
Oh gosh, don't quiz me on dates.
20th century. Somewhere in the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what apparently turned on John Steinbeck, who wrote a book that is absolutely amazing. Not the beginning,
Right.
which is frankly just a more literary version of Once and Future King. But then he gets to Gawain and his brother Ewain, who has different names in different versions, and Morholt, which is a novella. None of these stories are under 100 pages. And yeah, one cannot, should not describe what it is that Steinbeck did other than it's great Steinbeck.
Yeah, yeah. I look forward to reading that.
Yeah, and to find Arthurian Steinbeck.
I know.
Who'd have thunk it?
Well, that was also one of the other fun discoveries, is like, who was going to say yes to us? Like, we just at a certain point, you just sort of ask whoever you can think of, right? Because you need to get some yeses, and not everybody's going to say yes. And there were some real surprises, which was delightful. You know, like, oh yeah, I didn't know you were an Arthur nerd. Or actually, one of our authors who was like, yeah, I'm actually not really into Arthur. Is that okay? And I was like, yes, absolutely. Like, write me your I'm not into Arthur story.
I'm hoping that we, by the way, if anybody's hearing stories, maybe it's got to do with something I said, maybe it was my anti-Mary Stuart thing, but I've got a thunderstorm over my head right now.
Well, so if we glitch again, it won't necessarily be my fault.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you had one before. It's just moving east.
Yep, that's right.
That's probably it. It was in Pennsylvania, and now it's in New York.
Have fun.
Well, Brooklyn anyway. Yeah. But at any rate, the maybe there will be a renaissance of Arthurian fun. We have so many different geekdoms going on right now. Marvel, obviously, I don't know what the word is, but cascading over everything.
Yeah.
Star Wars,
yes.
Not far behind in Star Wars, of course, is very, very derivative of so many different things, to the point where the second movie of the whole Star Wars saga was written, or at least co-written, because she died halfway through, by Lee Brackett.
Right.
One of the great science fiction and crime writers of all time, having co-written with William Faulkner, The Big Sleep,
right,
and The Long Goodbye for Robert Altman. So from Humphrey Bogart to Elliot Gould to Star Wars.
Well, and my co-editor Swapna would say at this point that she has this theory that I cannot unsee now, that Kylo Ren from Star Wars is actually just Mordred in space. So, you know, there you go.
Ooh,
right?
Yeah,
it's good.
Okay, you have just made me not able to unsee that one either. That's genius.
It's so good. Yeah. And you know, we were joking though about an Arthurian expanded universe or an Arthurian shared universe like Marvel and Star Trek and Star Wars have now, and like I think that would be great. I
Jen,
can't
don't
wait
say
for
this
that.
on the air. Do it.
Yeah, right. Well, we're working. I mean, we started, right? And there are other people out there doing the same thing. So
yeah, but talk to media people.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
I don't know any media people, but if you're listening and you're a media people, you know, you get in touch.
I know a couple. And comics people.
Yeah, right.
And I know that you know some comics people. Like
it's true. We have I mean, Alex Segura is a great example, who's in Sword Stone Table and does comics as well as Star Wars and lots of other things.
And I've seen Chris Claremont hanging out at Word Books.
Oh, well, it's been a minute since I was there, so I did not encounter him, I have to say.
Okay, but do you know Chris?
I know his work.
Okay, I know him. In fact, embarrassingly, I knew him and I had him on my show as a writer, not knowing until we took phone calls when I thought we were going to talk about his book First Flight, with a female protagonist, space pilot, and people are, trying to get him to explain Dark Phoenix.
Yeah,
and I
right.
have no idea what they're talking about. I didn't read X-Men.
Oh gosh, talk about a formative canonical nostalgia experience. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's somebody you should talk to. He's written for a fellow named George Lucas.
Yeah, right. Well, listen, David Lowery, who did The Green Knight, is already out there doing it. I would love to see what else he wants to bring to that table.
Yeah. Well, he's right. He's a very eclectic.
It's true.
Director, from what I have seen. I have not yet seen his movie. I think it's called A Ghost Story.
No, I think this might be my first of his as well.
Yeah. Well, he's only done like 3.
Well, there you go.
And he's young.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's good though. That's good. That's exciting.
Yeah. So it would really be something to see it sounds wrong to say a renaissance of Arthurian, to be a medieval retake.
Yeah.
of a Renaissance retake on medieval literature. There we go. I don't know.
We'll go with it.
Yeah, we'll go with it. But yeah, I think the two of you should explore that kind of a thing.
You're giving me a lot of credit here, which I appreciate.
Well, I mean, it's worked for me.
Yeah, fair enough.
Reading this book has done that, and we do have to recommend again stories. Look, got me spoonerizing all over the place. Sword, Stone, Table.
I tell you what would be really amazing, I think, is if somebody wanted to do like a Black Mirror style, like anthology show out of Sword, Stone, Table. I would be all over that. Like, that would be incredible.
You see, now you're giving stuff away to other people. We're on the
well, this
radio
I own the rights to,
and
so
and YouTube and Facebook. Yeah, but but that would be very cool.
It would be very cool
if somebody did that.
Yeah.
So talk to your agent.
Yeah, right.
Because a lot of agents work with media agents.
It's true. It's true.
And they can split the take between them.
Yeah.
Split that 10 or 15% or whatever it is that they go for, and deal with it. Where would you say, I mean, you're not going to devote your career to Arthur. And
Probably
when I say
not.
Arthur, I mean the universe.
Yes, of course. Yeah, this is my first anthology, and I really hope it's not my last. I so thoroughly enjoyed the experience, and I was so privileged to work with the writers that we worked with, and to work with Swapna, my co-editor, and then Anna Kaufman at Random House. Like, everybody involved was such an education for me in how to put something like this together and how to do it well. So I really look forward to more creative projects like this. Now, what those themes will be, like, to be determined. I mean, I know people have asked Swapna and I if we want to do another one, and the answer is yes, but she's got some irons in the fire that she needs to tend to, and I've got some other things going on. So it's not going to happen immediately, certainly, but hopefully it will happen again. But yeah, I think I just really love this
how long
process.
has the book been out, by the way? Because I've been working from an arc.
Yeah, a month and a half. It came out July 13th, I want to say. 17th?
Okay.
13th. I should know that.
And do we know anything about how it's doing?
The reviews have been amazing. Yeah. I cannot get over the reviews. The sort of crowning jewel of which was the mention in Amal El-Matar's New York Times column.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm going to frame that. That's getting framed.
And you're going to ask her for a story, right?
Yeah, next time. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, So the reviews have been incredible. I confess to not having looked at the sales because I'm trying not to psych myself out.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, but the reviews could not have been kinder, and we've been getting really amazing feedback from readers, and we've heard from some folks in academia that they're considering teaching it, which is an honor. I mean, an absolute honor. So I hope that happens. That would be just incredible, and I would love to hear, what the classroom experience of doing something like this is.
If I could sit in on those, I would take that.
Right, I would take that class.
Would. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been, I mean, the reception has just been so warm and so welcoming. We're very lucky.
Okay, that's great news. Well, we have at this point recorded just shy of an hour.
All right.
And we're going to do 2 parts, right?
You mean?
Because we're going to have Swapna.
Oh, right. Yes, but to be determined. But yes,
yeah.
Hopefully.
And perhaps we'll do a reading or something.
Yeah, sure.
Get Maria or somebody, or Ken, or Maria and Ken.
Oh yeah, there you go.
and you could host it. That
I would be delighted.
Yeah. Okay. So put a
put a thumbtack
on that. Put a pin in that. Yes, exactly. And so what I think we should do is not wrap it up, but call it halftime.
There we go.
And wait for a future broadcast. And again, tell people, let's see if I can get this right. It should be showing up on both sides of the screen. Swordstone Table, mine is the Spoonerism. Because for some reason my monitor is showing it backwards. But it's just a fabulous, wonderful anthology. And with it, this is not, we can do a whole other show at some point. I've not gotten my movie reviewer, Dan Persons, who's also based out of Philadelphia, to review The Green Knight, because he only wants to see it on a big screen, which I can understand.
Absolutely.
Seeing the visuals of that.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't want to go into a movie theater.
Well, yeah,
and neither do I.
Well. No.
No, I so I had to watch it on a 40-inch screen, but it was no less, no, I shouldn't say it was no less amazing, but I could imagine seeing that thing blown up. But let me ask you one question about that movie.
Sure.
What were those giants?
I don't know. That is a burning question I have as well. And as I was watching the movie, and my head is playing a little bit of the game of trying to match up the pieces to other pieces of Arthuriana, and sort of sometimes working and sometimes failing, and then also trying to just take the movie as its own freestanding thing that has a lot of dream logic in it, right? Like there's a lot of dream logic to it, and that the giant bit is one of the bits where I do feel like I need to go back and rewatch to better understand how it fits into everything else, because it is the piece that I am the least sure about what I was supposed to take away from that.
Same here. There's a lot to try to unravel.
Yeah.
In that movie, and it requires at least 2 viewings. I would
for
say.
Sure. Although, do you know, it just occurred to me now, have you read The Buried Giant by Kazu Ishiguro?
No.
Which is Arthuriana retelling. And it's a strange, talk about dream logic. It is a very strange, dreamy reading experience. And now I'm wondering if there's not some sort of resonance between those two in terms of the giant. Anyway, now I'm having all these
given all of the source materials, ranging from perhaps what you just said to definitely a certain touch of Martin Scorsese.
Yes, surely. Mm-hmm.
And so many different referential things that happen in that movie. Maybe he did take it from there.
Maybe.
And hopefully there will be some, I haven't read enough about the movie because given the pandemic, it hasn't gotten any kind of wide release, and where it has, it's done very well for as movies are doing right now.
Yes, yes.
But it wants to be seen post-pandemic in a big IMAX kind of theater, so you can get that amazing cinematography.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the drive-in by me will put it on one of these weeks. I'm keeping an eye on it. Philadelphia Film Society has been doing amazing stuff with their drive-in program, so that you can be in your own car but still see it on the big screen.
That would
the sound, of course, is coming through your car radio. So depending on your car radio, the sound experience is variable, but you do get the big screen.
They should put it out over Wi-Fi. If they could somehow synchronize it properly.
Yeah, yeah.
And then people could hear it on good speakers.
Yeah, well.
Or on the speakers, put it on Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Then they could synchronize it, and people could have Bluetooth speakers in their car.
Right.
That would be a way of doing it. So
it would be.
If anybody, I don't think we have a single drive-in left in New York.
Yeah.
There was one in the lower Bronx some years ago, but that's gone. Over by the Whitestone Bridge, had a big WB on it, which I was convinced stood for Warner Brothers.
Right.
But it was actually Whitestone Bridge. At any rate, Jen, it has been a pleasure, and we will have you back.
Thank you so much.
Maybe to talk about more than one subject, and maybe to talk about a reading.
Yeah, sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, take care.